Imagine a man who has walked through fire, who has seen heartbreak at its worst, who has lived through unimaginable pain, and yet, he stands before the world today as one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. That man is Keanu Reeves. The internet calls him the nicest guy in Hollywood, the quiet superstar, the humble millionaire who rides the subway, who shares his fortune, who never lets fame corrupt his soul. But in 2024, the whispers about his lifestyle have taken a surprising turn. A wedding? A child? Could it really be true? And what does this new chapter mean for a man who has lived most of his life in solitude? Let's rewind. Because to understand Keanu Reeves in 2024, you need to understand the scars he carries. Born in Beirut in 1964, raised in Canada, Keanu's life was never easy. His father left when he was just a child. He grew up struggling with dyslexia, constantly moving schools, never finding stability. But one thing kept him going, his passion for acting. From theater stages in Toronto to Hollywood screens, Keanu fought his way up, often underestimated, sometimes mocked, but always resilient. And then came the 90s. Keanu Reeves became a household name. Speed, The Matrix, John Wick. He wasn't just a star, he was an icon. But while the world saw the glitz, his personal life was shattered. He fell deeply in love with Jennifer Syme. They were expecting a baby girl. But tragedy struck. The child was stillborn. Just a year later, Jennifer herself was killed in a car accident. For Keanu, it was devastation beyond words. He never married. He never had children. For decades, he lived quietly, privately, carrying his grief with grace. And that's why the rumors in 2024 hit like thunder. A wedding? A child? Could it be possible that Keanu Reeves, at 60 years old, is finally embracing a chapter of love and family? The spotlight has often caught him with his longtime partner, the artist Alexandra Grant. Their relationship has always been refreshingly real, no Hollywood drama. No flashy headlines, just companionship, respect, and love. They've been seen walking hand in hand, smiling at art events, enjoying dinners without the typical celebrity guardrails. For Keanu, Alexandra brought peace. And for Alexandra, Keanu brought trust. So, when whispers of a wedding spread across social media, fans erupted. Keanu deserves happiness. Finally, he found love. This is the ending we've all been hoping for. But then came the bigger shock, rumors of a child. Could Keanu Reeves, at 60, be embracing fatherhood? For years, he's spoken about loss, about what it means to live with grief. In interviews, he admitted how much he longed for family, but how fate had been cruel. And now, in 2024, fans began to wonder, did life finally give Keanu the miracle he never thought he'd have? Of course, the internet loves the story. Some say the wedding already happened in secret. Others claim he's keeping the child away from the spotlight, protecting his family from the chaos of fame. Whether fact or rumor, one thing is certain, Keanu Reeves has always been a private man. While most celebrities broadcast every detail of their lives, Keanu hides in plain sight. He doesn't live in giant Beverly Hills mansions. He doesn't travel with 10 bodyguards. Instead, he's been spotted riding his motorcycle across Los Angeles, grabbing a sandwich from a local shop, or quietly sitting on a park bench, lost in thought. But don't mistake his simplicity for poverty. Keanu Reeves is one of the richest men in Hollywood, with a net worth estimated at hundreds of millions. Thanks to franchises like The Matrix and John Wick, he could live like a king. Yet, he famously gave away most of his Matrix earnings, over $70 million, to the costume and special effects teams, saying they deserved it more. He quietly funds children's hospitals, cancer research, and countless charities, all without attaching his name. This humility has made him more than just a movie star. He's become a legend, a symbol of kindness in an industry often accused of vanity. So, imagine this man, the one who gives more than he takes, who carries grief with dignity, finally finding happiness in a wedding, in a child. The idea alone feels like a Hollywood movie, except it's real life. And the emotional weight of that story is why fans around the world are holding their breath. Let's step into the personal picture for a moment. Keanu Reeves wakes up not in a palace, but in a modest, beautiful home. He doesn't need gold-plated walls. Instead, he treasures art, books, and quiet spaces. He still spends hours riding his motorcycles, fixing them with his own hands. He still treats strangers with kindness. Taxi drivers, waiters, janitors, they all share stories of Keanu's generosity, his humility, his genuine conversations, and maybe that's why the wedding rumors feel so believable. Because if anyone deserves a simple, beautiful love story, it's him. Now, what about fatherhood? Could Keanu truly be a dad in 2024? Picture it for a moment. A man who has lived 6 decades of sorrow and survival, finally holding a child in his arms. The thought alone brings chills. It's the kind of ending every fan wishes for him. A chance at new beginnings, a chance at healing. And yet, as with all things Keanu, he keeps us guessing. He doesn't confirm. He doesn't deny. He doesn't need the spotlight to validate his happiness. In fact, maybe that's the real magic here. Keanu Reeves teaches us that life isn't about flaunting what you have, it's about treasuring what truly matters. Love, family, peace, as 2024 unfolds, his career is still booming. John Wick continues to dominate box offices. The Matrix remains a timeless classic. New projects keep his calendar busy. But behind the cameras, away from Hollywood lights, fans believe Keanu has found something even greater, a personal life, finally filled with love, with companionship, and maybe, just maybe, with the joy of fatherhood. And perhaps that's the lesson of Keanu Reeves. A lesson that speaks not just to fans who admire him from afar, but to anyone who has ever struggled, anyone who has ever lost, anyone who has ever felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on their chest. Because when you look at this man's journey, you begin to understand that no matter how much pain life throws at you, no matter how many times you're broken by grief, no matter how often fate seems to rip away the people and dreams you hold dearest, there is always hope. Fragile at times, faint like a candle in the dark, but they're flickering, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to believe again. Because Keanu's life has been one of constant reminders that hope can return when you least expect it, that love can find you after years of emptiness, that joy can sneak back into your days even after decades of sorrow, that even the loneliest hearts, the ones that seem too shattered to ever be whole again, can somehow heal, slowly, imperfectly, but heal nonetheless. And this is why when whispers of his wedding and the possibility of fatherhood began to circulate in 2024, the world collectively held its breath. Because it wasn't just celebrity gossip, it wasn't just another headline in the never-ending flood of Hollywood news. It was something more, something symbolic, something that felt almost poetic, as if the universe itself was finally granting peace to a man who had endured more storms than most could survive. As if life was saying to Keanu, "You've given enough. You've suffered enough. Now it's time to receive. Now it's time to be loved. Now it's time to start again." And in that possibility, fans saw their own dreams reflected, their own scars soothed, because his story has always been bigger than movies, bigger than fame, bigger than the bright lights of red carpets. His story is about resilience, about the quiet kind of heroism that doesn't make headlines but makes life bearable. And that is why, wedding or not, child or not, one thing is clear. Keanu Reeves in 2024 continues to live a life that is richer than money, deeper than fame, and more inspiring than any role he has ever played on screen. Because his true role, the one no director assigned to him, the one no scriptwriter imagined for him, is the role of survivor, the role of giver, the role of man who walks through grief yet still offers kindness. And that is why the world will always love him, because what he represents is rare, almost mythical in an industry defined by vanity and excess. And yet here he stands, unshaken by wealth, unchanged by power. Still that same humble soul who gives up his seat on the subway, who donates fortunes quietly, who greets fans with genuine warmth. And so the thought of him finding love again, of him perhaps holding a child, feels like justice, like balance finally being restored, like life finally apologizing for all it took away. But to fully feel the weight of this moment, you must step back and trace the roots of his story. You must remember the boy born in Beirut who grew up without a father's guidance, the teenager who struggled with dyslexia, who never felt at home in schools, who drifted between places searching for belonging, and yet who discovered acting as a lifeline, who threw himself into his craft not for fame but for expression, for survival. Then the young man in Hollywood who is often underestimated, whose soft-spoken manner and unpolished style made critics doubt him, and yet who kept showing up, kept working, kept proving that heart matters more than polish, that persistence outlasts stout. And then the star who rose to global fame in the 90s, first with action-packed speed, then with the revolutionary Matrix. Roles that made him a symbol of strength, of coolness, of cinematic immortality, and yet behind the camera, in the shadows of flashing lights, he was grieving, he was losing, he was hurting in ways no blockbuster paycheck could fix. Because tragedy hit when he and his partner Jennifer Syme lost their child, a daughter stillborn, a heartbreak that would have broken many beyond repair. And as if fate hadn't already been cruel enough, just a year later, Jennifer herself died in a car accident, leaving Keanu alone, his dreams of fatherhood ripped from him, his chance at a family stolen. And it was in those years that he retreated, that he became a man of solitude, a man who didn't seek attention, a man who carried his pain quietly, privately, with dignity. But pain doesn't just vanish, it becomes part of you. It shapes your worldview. It changes the way you move through the world. And in Keanu's case, it made him gentler, more compassionate, more grounded, more aware of others, which is why so many stories of his kindness circulate. Stories of him giving away most of his Matrix earnings to the crew, stories of him funding hospitals without attaching his name, stories of him treating janitors, waiters, and fans with the same respect he gives to fellow actors. And so when we arrive at 2024 and rumors begin to swirl about him finally marrying his longtime partner, Alexandra Grant, the world doesn't just see another celebrity wedding. They see healing. They see a wound slowly closing after decades. They see hope alive in the heart of a man who once thought he had lost everything. And then comes the whisper of fatherhood, the idea that maybe, just maybe, Keanu Reeves could finally hold a child in his arms. Not as a character in a film, not as a fantasy, but in his real life. And that thought alone sends waves of emotion through his fans, because they know how much he lost. They know how long he grieved, and the idea of him finally being given that chance feels like a victory for all of us. Because if Keanu Reeves can find joy again after so much pain, then maybe we can too. Maybe none of us are ever too broken. Maybe none of us are ever too late to love again. And that is the true power of his story. It isn't just entertainment, it's inspiration. It's a mirror that shows us resilience. It's a reminder that healing is possible, that hope is real, that life, as cruel as it can be, also has a way of giving back. And so whether or not the rumors are true, whether or not a wedding actually happened in secret, whether or not there is a child kept far from the spotlight, the image alone is enough to inspire millions. Because Keanu has always been a man of privacy, a man who values peace over publicity, who would rather live quietly than chase headlines. And that in itself makes him more admirable. Because in a world where celebrities post every detail of their lives for attention, he protects what matters, he shields his love, he guards his peace. And perhaps that's why the mystery only makes people love him more. Because it forces us to imagine, to believe, to fill in the blanks with hope. And in that hope we find ourselves. We see the possibility of our own lives changing, of our own tragedies turning into triumphs. And that is why Keanu Reeves is not just another actor, not just another millionaire, not just another celebrity passing through the pages of gossip magazines. He is something else entirely. He is proof that humanity still exists in Hollywood. He is proof that humility can survive fame. He is proof that kindness still matters. And in 2024, as whispers of weddings and children swirl, as fans celebrate the possibility of him finding family, he becomes proof of something even greater, that love can return, even when you thought it was gone forever, that joy can find you again when you thought it had abandoned you, that the loneliest hearts, yes, even those that seem beyond repair, can find healing, can find warmth, can find light. And maybe that is the lesson, the real legacy of Keanu Reeves, more lasting than any movie, more powerful than any franchise, more moving than any box office record, that in a world obsessed with glamour and perfection, his imperfect, painful, resilient journey reminds us that what matters is not how much we earn, not how much applause we get, but how much heart we carry, how much kindness we share, how much love we allow back into our lives. And that is why, wedding or not, child or not, the world will always love him, not for the roles he has played, but for the man he has become. A man who never gave up on the possibility of love, a man who never let grief harden him, a man who turned tragedy into compassion, a man who kept walking, quietly, humbly, toward hope, and in doing so, showed all of us how to keep walking too. Disclaimer: the content in this video is based on publicly available information, media sources, and opinions. It is created for entertainment and educational purposes only. We do not claim or guarantee that every detail is 100% accurate,